Welcome back to the hang gliding files. Today we're going to talk about the site database app, and I think we should start back at the beginning. What you need to fly hang gliders in a simulator is three things. You need to be able to have a glider, you need to be able to get to a site, you need to be able to launch from that site, and you need to be able to build and share these sites with other people. So along those lines, this software is meant so that we can share our knowledge with everybody, that we can build our own databases personally and then share that with the community and build a much larger hang gliding based community that's built around virtual hang gliding. So follow along, stay along for the ride. Here we go. The hang gliding file app is a desktop app for Windows. You'll have an icon on your desktop, and you'll be able to launch it, and you get an app like this. All the instructions on how to install this application are at the end of the video. Well, we'll start with the settings page, and that's the first page that you need to set something up, and everything in here only needs to be set up once. The first thing we'll set up is the location of your Microsoft Flight Simulator community folder. And this is where you have your Microsoft Simulator community install done, and that's unique to every installation, but mine is an example here. Next up is a directory, which is the directory that your application has been installed into. So this is again unique to you where you installed it. The reason it needs to be there with that sample packages at the end is that's the directory in which it gets all the templates to create new scenery. And the last file path that we have to define is where would you like all of the created scenery packages to be created in. And inside this directory, the app will automatically create subdirectories for all of the different countries and states and sites. All you need to do is define a root definition of where you want to have these and where you can find them. And this just happens to be my definition. And this last bit is just defining the default sim objects that you want to be created when you create scenery packages. And these are just the defaults. You can overwrite them on each and every export of scenery. The default page when you open up the app is the map page, and basically it's a scrollable map that shows you where all of the existing sites in your database are. And if you look at it and you look around, there's a whole lot of white space out there, and there's a whole lot of places that I have a lot of details where there's a lot of sites. But what we need to do is all of us together is fill in the map with sites all over the planet everywhere so that we all have really cool places to fly. Well, next up is site details, and then you go to the site detail page, and the first thing you can see is how many sites you have in your database. And another thing is that you can just scroll through all of the sites until you find the one that you want to use. They're in alphabetical order. And a faster way to find sites is to just use the search bar at the bottom of the screen and just type in part of the site name that you're looking for, and you'll get any sites that match the text that you put in, and you select one of those and you'll go directly to that site. Once you have selected a site, you get the basic information for that site and a bit of information about the spawn points that are on that site and general description. From this point you could delete the site if you want, or you could edit the site. Well, prior to editing any site, it would be good to look to see if you've got a connection to your simulator, and you can see that in the lower left corner, and if it's not green then you can push the connect button and it will connect to your simulator if it's running. And in the lower right corner is a button that is labeled a teleport, and you can then use any of the spawn points that are defined for this site and teleport directly from this page into the sim if you need to. When you press the edit button on a site that you found, you can then go in and change anything about the site information, launches, setup areas, or landing areas. And there can be more than one of any of these types per site. It's not unusual that some sites only have one, but also in this example, a site can have multiple launches and multiple landing areas and multiple setup areas, and you are not restricted in how you build your site. You can make it as big and encompass as big an area as you think is represented by what you would call a site. All right, building new sites is what this software is all about. And so we'll go through the whole sequence of really from front to back of building a really simple site. And this will be a site that I've never seen before, and this is the whole process. So like all processes nowadays, the first thing I did is I just looked up any hang glider sites I could find in Norway, just someplace I picked out at random. And then if I have never flown the site or I've never been there, I'd like to go to YouTube just to get a feel for how it looks. And then I'll go to Google Earth and I'll find a spot and set a pin placement for what I think might be a viable launch, landing area, and setup area. It's usually wrong, but it gets a start. We switch back to the app, and we had the already open new site dialog, and what we're going to do is we're going to cut and paste the geolocations that we found in some of the descriptions that maybe that ChatGPT gave us into the edit box so that we can start the beginnings of a new site. The important parts to get right here on this page is the name, no funny characters or nothing out of the ordinary that can't be used as a file name, and make sure that the state and the country are correct. Now we'll switch to the launch tab, and then we're going to cut and paste in the latitude and longitude and altitude of at least the launch site. Hitting OK here then defaults all of the other setup and LZs to these definitions. Now we have to see whether or not these coordinates that we got out of Google Earth are going to work inside the simulator. They use different meshes, so there's a difference in altitudes and locations between Google Earth and what's inside the sim. But they're pretty close, but we need to verify it. And one way to do that is to use the teleport from the app itself now that you have the launch defined and you are connected to the simulator, and that should teleport you right to the site. At this point, you could actually even use the widget that's in our first video, but to do that you would have to reboot Microsoft Flight Simulator for it to recognize that change in the widget. But any modifications you do inside the THGF app is automatically updated to the widget. And what do you know, we're somewhere in Norway, and after the simulator kind of settles down and figures out where we are, we'll take a look around. As you can see here, it dropped us on the side of the hill, and that's not where we want to be. So we're going to use the ground handling tool, which is going to be another piece of software that we'll explain in another video. And we'll use that to walk around our potential site here. And we're going to be looking for a much better place that would be more suitable for a setup area, which is a nice flat area that we could spawn into without moving, and that's close to launch. So we can use the ground handling tool to walk around, identify different places, and once we're settled and we have found a place that we think is a good setup area or launch area, then we can directly update that information back into the app database directly from the simulator. You can then automatically update the latitude and longitude by hitting the Get button back in the Edit dialog. Well, next up would be finding a landing area, and we're just going to use Google Earth to find a nearby flat spot that will then cut and paste those geolocations into the LZ setting for this app and then save it. And then we can also test that later if we want to. Well, at this point you've actually created a complete site, and it has already been updated into the widget, and you could go into Microsoft Flight Simulator right now and teleport to that site and most probably be able to fly from it. But it's best if you do another iteration and revisit the site and verify that the site takeoff and landings are all actually usable. So that's what we're going to do here with the widget, and we're going to go visit our new site and see how it looks. Well, the widget puts us down right where we set up our setup area from before, and we can use our ground handling again to walk over to what we have identified as the launch. And there's no indicators as to where the launch is, or windsocks or telltales here, because all that we've created is just a raw site. But one thing we can do is we can take off and make sure that it's a launchable site, and it is. And again, we could stop right here saying we verified the site. Well, now that you've created a valid site, I like to take it the next step and then create a scenery package for that site. And that would include ramps, windsocks, and telltales. And it's really easy to do, and this is how you do it. You just open up the share page, make sure you have your site selected, and go to the export to the MSFF 2020 packages. That brings up this dialog, which is telling you what you're going to export in your package. Path that is red indicates that you're updating an existing project that's already been created, which means that you can do this multiple times without losing any modifications that you've done. The other things are options that are set from your default from your settings page, and you can change those and put them in or leave them out or whatever you want. And that just tells the app what to create as part of your scenery package. After doing that, you can go to the path that was on that dialog, or how you had defined in your settings page where you were outputting all your scenery packages, and you'll see the automatically created directory structures based on country, state, and then you end up with a pre-built scenery package that can be built in Microsoft Simulator 2020. Don't let this step intimidate you. It's actually very, very easy, and it's a very powerful way for you to be able to modify and create your own sceneries in the simulator. The first thing you have to do is you have to make sure that your simulator has the developer mode turned on, and that gives you the menu at the top that you can use to do the next steps. You use these menus then to open the project that we just created. So you just use your directory structure, go back to the package that we had just created, and you open up the project.xml. Once you have that project open, you just simply open it in the project editor, make sure that the inspector view is open, and push the build package. And that results with the console window opening, and it should have 0 of X number of errors. And that's all that's important, and you can then just close everything down. And you can test this right away if you want. Just spawn into the simulator and use the widget tool to teleport you to your site. And once you're there, you're going to see telltales, windsocks, launch ramps, points of interest indicators for launches and landing areas. Everything that you indicated that you wanted to become part of your package will show up now. And all you have to do is look around and check it out. The other cool thing that happens when you create a scenery package is it also creates a default weather preset for this particular site as well. So if you just go up into the weather tab and do a search in the weather, you'll find your generated weather preset. You select it, it sets the wind and the winds aloft to be set perfect for this site, and you see the windsock has changed. You use your ground handling to reset the glider, and it points directly into the wind, and now you're ready to go directly off of launch. But none of that really happens unless you've installed your package that you created into the Microsoft Flight Simulator community folder. So we're going to go back to our package directory that we had, and now you'll see some more directories and an actually exported here package, which we just put into a zip. Then we use our add-in tool function that allows us to install add-ons into the simulator, and we literally go and install that zip file which we just created by zipping up the compiled package and installing it into Microsoft Flight Simulator, and now that makes it a permanent part of your simulator environment, and it'll be there every time you start up as long as it's indicated here to be started up. And believe it or not, you have just created your own add-in mod to the simulator like any other developer that builds add-ons to Microsoft Simulator. And you did that without doing any code. You just defined where the elements of the launch and landing area were, and pushed a few buttons, created a package, had Microsoft compile it, and you've made a permanent modification to the simulator. What's really cool is, in addition to that, if you want to get really serious, you can go back to that package, open up the scenery editor of that package, and then you can start adding in any other custom objects like cars and coolers and campfires, or trucks, or guardrails, or anything that you can imagine or that you can find online that's an object that's compatible with a Microsoft Flight Simulator scenery, including those that we provide as part of our tools. So you can also modify the geography, and you can modify trees. You can add trees or remove trees, because it's not uncommon that when you create a new site that there's actually trees where there shouldn't be trees, right where you know there's a launch. So you don't have to do that, and I'm just mentioning it because it's an easy thing to do, and it's mostly point and click, and we encourage people to be creative and try to make sites as real as possible. Like this site in Norway, I've never been there. I don't know if I've gotten it right or not, but somebody who lives in Norway does, and they can tell me exactly what I've done wrong and what should be where. And what I encourage is that they do it, and everybody participates and makes these sites as good and as realistic and as immersive as we can make them. In this particular example, we're going to go down and we're going to go land at the LZ that we marked out. And one of the things that we're going to notice is that LZ marker isn't in the center of the soccer field. And that's because, again, the meshes between Microsoft and Google aren't exactly the same. So once we get down to the landing area that we've identified, we'll just use the get function within the app and reset the existing landing area that we have to be more precise as to where the LZ should be. So you can continually update sites and site information and tweak it and make it better until you're completely satisfied with the way that your site is built and constructed and defined. Also, don't worry about all of the details about creating detailed site sceneries. You don't need to know how to do that. I'm going to create a whole video about that. You just need to know that it's possible, and that there's a lot more that you can do than you might have realized from the start. Well, now we get to the good part, and this is one of the real reasons why we even built this app, and that is so that we give everybody the power to be able to build hang glider sites that can be used in a virtual world. And for that to be of any value, we need to be able to share it and distribute that to the entire community. And I'm going to show you how that's done. And the first way is to use the email option of the share, and that will just simply send the basic site information that you just created to us at the hang gliding files, and we'll then include that into the next release of the software. Or you can use the export to JSON to a file option, save the JSON file to disk, and then just create an email and attach as attachments this JSON file and your zip file for your scenery package, and that gets us a complete site description that we can also put up on the website. And then this is what that looks like, and we'll put it up on the website for other people to download directly, and then they can import it directly into their app and into their widgets, and then they can then fly your exact same site that you created. And then this way we create a dynamic community of site builders. And we also create a site guide for each site that we get information from, and that allows people to search and find really detailed information about the actual real site that is represented by this information. And this is actually going to help real hang glider pilots all over the world, as well as virtual hang glider pilots. And the real point of all this is that the more sites there are, the more places we get to fly, the more immersive and the more fun flying virtual hang gliders is going to be. So I really encourage everybody to participate by not only building sites, but sharing those sites. Well, the other side of that sharing coin is that you get to import and add new sites to your database from other people. And one of the ways that you can do that is you can just simply load a JSON file that you've gotten from anywhere. You could have gotten it from your friend, you could have got it from the website. It doesn't matter where you got it from. If you get a valid JSON file, you can just import it directly into your app, and that becomes part of your database. And as becoming part of your database, it also becomes part of the widget. You can also import any scenery packages that you might have gotten from a download from the website or somebody gave you. But that's simply a matter of taking that zip file and then putting it into your community folder, and then you have that scenery. But remember that the scenery and the data are two separate things, and they're managed separately. Another way you get new sites is by getting an updated app. And inside that app, we've always add new sites, but we never override your existing database. So it's up to you to use this function to go look at the new factory defaults and decide whether or not you want to add any of the new sites into your database. You're in complete control of your data at all times. Well, one last feature of the app is the ability for us to manage flying tasks. And these are just simply fun to fly routes and turn points that make flying with you friends and having a goal. And it's real fun to do. So what we do here is we allow you to upload tasks from various sources, from Microsoft Flight Plans or XC tasks, and just attach them in and put them in the database, and then you can attach them to your site, or if even they're near your site, you can use them. And this allows you to have different things that you can do when you want to fly your sites. And we encourage you to build these and to share these. There's the same mechanism by which those can be shared. And with that, it just makes flying with your friends a lot more enjoyable, because there's something that you're doing together as a common goal. All right, now for the fun part. After you had to sit through all of that, figuring out how to use the app, you just go to the Hang Gliding Files website, go to this personal site database download in the download section. You should already be set up as a user by having downloaded the widget prior. And once that's downloaded, it will be a zip file. You unzip it, and inside of it will be an executable called the THGF executable. And you might be questioned about that by your Windows environment, because it's not a signed executable. Doesn't have any viruses. It just is a thing that Windows does to prevent unknown executables from executing. Just bypass it if you want. And then once you have the executable, you just start the install program, and it will prompt you through installing the app and installing an icon on your desktop, and you'll be ready to go. One thing to note on the install is that it always backs up your existing data before it installs. You can install over an existing installation. You don't have to worry about that, so getting updates is no problem. With that, hope you guys like the video. Keep up on this series. If you like this stuff, like and subscribe, and pretty soon we're going to be seeing everybody out on the hill flying hang gliders. Later.